What's up, guys? We're back. We are still here in the comfort suites as we will recap last night's action at the Red Dirt Raceway for what was the first race of the midweek money series. And Red Dirt Raceway may have jumped into the top 10 of tracks, maybe even the top 5 of tracks that I've ever been to as being a fan or a broadcaster in sprint car racing. And this place delivered not only in the feature, but it delivered in qualifying even. It delivered in the heat races and everything all night long. So it was a great night of action. 35 cars showed up for this first race for the Midweek Money Series. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's a 10-race mini-series built into the 59-race schedule with a separate points fund and all that kind of stuff. So qualifying kicked things off with Zeb Wise going quickest overall in the Rudine 26 car, and Kevin Rudine was a pretty big sponsor of this race, so that was cool to see Zeb go quick time with that being attached to it. 12.325, and if you'll see right here in that first flight, and then even the first couple cars in Flight B, everybody was super close, all of them in the 12.3 second bracket. So Zeb, Casey Kane, good qualifying effort for him for second quick. Kyle Larson was third, Tyler Courtney, and Parker Price Miller, who had an overall solid night in the 9P with a 12.381. He was fifth quick in Flight A. Flight B, Brad Sweet nearly went 3 in a row there with quick times, but he missed out on the overall quick time by just a couple hundredths of a second with a 12.334. Brent Marks, 12.347, and Rico Abreu. Brady Bacon making his first high limit racing appearance of the season with a fourth place run in qualifying. And then Corey Day would end up in fifth. Now, jumping into the heat races here, if you look over here, the green dots denote if a driver made it into the dash or not. And then over here, the black numbers is where they started at in that particular heat race. So heat race number 1, they did a little bit of a track rework right before that heat race rolled onto the track. It wasn't like a major rework or anything like that, just kind of a small one. But the track still have a lot of grip in it for that first heat. So not a lot happening here in this one besides a good battle for the lead right at the beginning. Parker Price Miller getting really aggressive and knowing how the format works with high limit. He wasn't messing around. Made a move to the inside of Kyle Larson to take the win and move into the dash. Behind them, not a whole lot of stuff going on besides Jason Martin. He was really good in this heat race. He went 8th to 4th, was able to pass the fastest qualifier in that heat race being Zeb Wise. So Jason Martin, we'll talk more about him later on because he was having a good night going until he got upside down in the feature. But he ends up 4th and then Zeb Wise 5th. So it was Parker Price Miller and Zeb Wise going to the dash after the first heat race. Heat race number 2 is when things really started getting going as far as the on-track action and the track getting wider and wider as Tyler Courtney would get the win, but he was challenged most of that race by Anthony Macri. I don't think Macri I think he did get by him once or twice, but Tyler Courtney was able to hold on and get the win. Macri would end up 2nd, James McFadden was 3rd, Casey Kane 4th, but the real battle in this one was between Jace Park, Kerry Madsen, and I believe the other one was Jacob Allen in that race as well. That was in the B, sorry, but Jace Park was battling definitely with Kerry Madsen in that heat race, and Kerry looked like he was in a solid position to move in there, but Jace Park, who had been there before, he'd never been there in anything besides a micro, but man, did he make something work on the inside of the racetrack in that one. Slid by Kerry with one of the longest sliders I've ever seen. He did not clear that thing until almost on the back straightaway, it looked like. Was able to get 5th there on the final lap, and he went from 8th to 5th to get into that last transfer spot, and that was in his high limit racing debut for Jace Park, so that was cool to see for him. Moving on to heat race number 3, I forgot to mention, Tyler Courtney and Casey Kane were your dash cars out of that heat race. Heat race number 3, Corey Day would get by Rico Abreu very early in that one, and he would go on to score the win. Now, behind those guys, Rico and Corey, was just absolute craziness. There was a melee going on back there. Brad Sweet at one point in time was in the 3rd spot, and then on the same lap, he went from 3rd to 6th, 2 different times in this heat race. There was just so much action. It was hard to follow, honestly, everything that was going on in these heat races, which is crazy to say because there's only 8 cars out there on the racetrack, but there really was just that much action at Red Dirt Raceway. But Dominic Scelzi would drive from 6th to 3rd and get into that 3rd position. Hunter Schoenberg, he was strong again in the Josh Ford Motorsports car. He ended up in 4th, and then Brad Sweet would end up in 5th. But, it was close. It looked like he was not going to make the feature out of the heat race. I can't remember who was back behind him. I didn't put the full results just because I can't fit everything on the board without you guys being able to read it yourselves. But whoever finished 6th in this race was right there with him, swapping spots back and forth. There had to be like probably 5 different changes for position among those, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th place drivers in that heat race. It was absolute craziness, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So Corey Day and Brad Sweet would go on to the dash out of that one. Final heat race of the night is where some feelings definitely got hurt in this one. Brady Bacon would get the win by 6 miles over the rest of the field. He looked extremely good early in the night, but he would fade in the feature, as we'll talk about later on. Tanner Thorson would finish second after a spirited battle between himself, Jacob Allen, and Brent Marks. Marks would end up in the 3rd spot. He would go into the dash with Brady Bacon. Corey Eliason was 4th, and Cap Henry would sneak by on the final corner to get into 5th. And the reason he was able to sneak by was some contact between Jacob Allen and Brent Marks coming off the final corner. Jacob was running the top coming off of turn number 4, and Brent Marks threw him a big slider, and it looked like it wasn't quite clear all the way. Jacob hops over the cushion, which at that point in time in the heat races was already huge. Really upset his race car, got all kinds of sideways, and Corey Eliason, Cap Henry got by, and then Jacob would end up in the 6th position. He'd have to go on to the B main event. Now, after this heat race, coming off the racetrack, Jacob kind of gave a little, you know, bump to the rear bumper of Brent Marks, then drove around him, kind of cut him off getting off the racetrack, and certainly was not happy with him. You know, and that's the first time I've seen Jacob kind of get upset with a move on the racetrack like that. And probably because he's just been so fast and he's right up there in the high limit point standings. He was going to have a good starting spot for the feature, and instead he's going to be going to the B main. But man, that heat race was really good as well. Cars just all over the racetrack at Red Dirt Raceway. So the dash, that was won by Zeb Wise. And then in the B main, your transfers out of that were Justin Peck, Spencer Baston, Brenham Crouch, and I believe the other one was Cy Lynch. So those were your 4 transfers out of that one. And the B main was even crazy as well. They were 3 wide coming across the line for the last transfer spot. Brenham Crouch with a slider from the next town over to get by Kerry Madsen, and at the same time as Madsen goes to cross him over coming to the line, Jacob Allen is, you know, pole putting off the bottom. They come across the line 3 wide. Madsen and Jacob get together coming across the line, but it's Brenham Crouch, the young driver from Lubbock, Texas, able to hang on to that last transfer spot in the last corner. I don't even know if he was in 4th the entire race. He was in 4th just for the last 200 feet of the race and was able to make it into the feature. Knocks out Kerry Madsen, and Jacob Allen would have to use a provisional to make the feature here tonight at Red Dirt. So let's get into the feature event. So Corey Day would end up getting the win. He started back in the 7th position, and as far as I know, off the top of my head, I believe that's the farthest somebody's come back to win a high limit race so far this year. It would be his 2nd in a row, and the other cool thing about it is he was the Durst Dice driver. That's what I've got denoted here with the double D. Some of you might like double Ds, but double D actually means Durst dice roll here on the board, and Corey Day would get the win, and it was worth an extra $3,500 for him and $3,500 for a fan in the stands. That fan would come down and take a picture in Victory Lane, and it was a really cool deal. That guy probably showed up with, you know, 20 bucks in his pocket to buy some tacos that night and a beer at the you know, concession stand, and he left with $3,500. So very cool. So Corey Day, $23,500 for the win. He would lead laps 20 through 35. So there were 3 different leaders in this race. The other one was Tyler Courtney. He led laps 7 through 19. He finishes on the podium yet again. I've lost track already of how many podiums he's been on so far this year, and he will leave with the high limit point lead and actually extends it as Brad Sweet ran into some issues here in this race. Brent Marks, he would drive from 8th up to 3rd. He looked really strong at the end of this race, running the inside of the racetrack, but maybe ran out of laps. Honestly, it looked like Corey Day had him covered in this one. He honestly, after he got the lead, he kind of stunk up the show a little bit. I mean, he drove away with a big lead in this one and pretty much dominated the last part of this race. Parker Price Miller have a green dot next to him. Just an overall solid night for him. You know, you can see over here he qualified 5th. Won the heat race and started 6th in this race and finished 4th. He had the bottom dialed in early on in this one, and just a solid night for him after 2 tough nights at RPM and Texas. Now, Justin Peck, I mean, wow, what a run for him after kind of like the same situation as Parker Price Miller. He was pretty slow at RPM and at Texas, ran into some issues at Texas, had a bleeder go bad, I believe, and then got into a wreck at RPM, spun around, I think. He went from 21st up to 5th after winning the B main. And wow, I wish this race was maybe another 5 laps, and I think I wish we could have seen another caution to see what Peck could have done. But he was the hard charger in this one. As you can see here with these blue numbers, that is where the drivers started at. There were a lot of big movers here in this race. Kyle Larson, green dot next to him. He finishes 6th after starting 9th. At one point in time, he was back in 12th or 13th, but came on strong late in this race and finished in the 6th spot. He just doesn't have that speed that he had the first race at East Bay, right? He dominated at East Bay, won in convincing fashion, but ever since then, really has not been competing for victories. 6th place was all he could muster here in this one. Rico Abreu, he started 10th. He finished in the 7th spot. A solid run for him after 2 tough nights at Texas. I think Texas actually finished like 7th or 8th, but RPM got upside down over there, was finishing outside the top 20. He finishes 7th in this one. Then Brad Sweet, I got a green dot next to him. It looked like this was the night where he was maybe going to get a High Limit Racing win in 2024. He was strong. He was up to 3rd place. He was challenging for the lead when Tyler Courtney and Zeb Wise were going at it, but he slips back to 8th at the very end of the race. Not a very good finish for Brad Sweet. I mean, it's a good finish, but we expect to see him in the top 5 every night. He finishes 8th for $2,400. Casey Kane was 9th after starting 2nd. James McFadden finishes 10th after starting 15th. I got a green dot next to Corey Eliason because he went 18th to 11th. A solid night for those guys. They're still trying to figure out with the new crew chief with Shuttlesworth there. So a solid night them. Thought I'd give him a little love here in this video. Spencer Baston 22nd to 12th, and that was even after he went to the work area for a flat right rear tire after contact with Hunter Schoenberg. And so Spencer Baston recovers to a decent finish. Jacob Allen, green dot next to him, had to take that provisional to make the show and makes his way up to the 13th position. What could have been for Jacob Allen if he didn't get into that heat race incident with Brent Marks? And then we got Tanner Thorson and Brenham Crouch rounding out the top 15. Cy Lynch, Chris Wyndham. I got a green dot next to Anthony Macri. It was a tough night for him, his first time to Red Dirt Raceway after getting the win at Texas and finishing, I believe, 4th at RPM. He was really nowhere to be found here in this one. 18th position for Anthony Macri. Zeb Wise, green dot next to him. The night for him was really, really good. Obviously, quick time overall. He was, where did he finish at in the heat race? 5th in the heat race. Won the dash, and he led the first 6 laps of this one. Gets into a wreck after Brad Sweet and Parker Price Miller get together coming off of turn number 2, racing for around 4th. And then Zeb, he couldn't really do much about it. Car came across his nose, and he flew into the infield. He would end up in 19th position after leading 6 laps. And then Brady Bacon, I got a green dot next to him as well. He started 5th in this race, and he looked strong in the early parts of the night. He was 4th overall in his qualifying flight, and then he won the heat race by 6 miles, and then he went all the way back to 20th position. I don't even think he got in a wreck or anything. Just, first night out, I believe, in the wing car this year, and they didn't quite have the feature package too good for him. Dominic Scelzi, Cap Henry, Cole Macedo, and Jace Park would be the would be the 24th place finishers. And then Jason Martin, I meant to put a green dot next to him. I think that was his first feature of the year with High Limit Racing, and he was up to actually 12th position before getting upside down after battling with Tanner Thorson. And it was tough to see that for Jason Martin. He went 8th to 4th in the heat race, was up to 12th in the feature, got upside down, and his night ended early. But it was really cool to see him have some speed over there at Red Dirt Raceway. Then finishing out the field, Hunter Schoenberg, 26. He got into that wreck with Spencer Baston, and Kevin Newton would round out the field in 27th. So really good action from Red Dirt Raceway. It certainly has jumped into the top 5 of my new favorite racetracks, and I really hope it's on the schedule again next year for High Limit Racing. So let's give this one a score out of 100. So the racing, as I mentioned at the top of this video, was phenomenal. From the qualifying laps, single car qualifying was fun to watch. The heats were phenomenal. The B main was absolutely incredible, and the feature was really, really good as well. But the problem is Corey Day, he kind of stunk up the show once he got to the lead and drove out to a pretty, sizable advantage. But other than that, the action behind him was really, really good. But I am going to factor in, Corey Day driving away with the lead. I'm going to give it a pretty good score, though. I'm going to go, and I'm not going to write this very nicely here, but it's going to be a 92. That is the worst 92 ever, but a 92 out of 100 for Red Dirt Raceway. Cody Brewer, Shane Stewart, all those guys did a really good job over there. They have got the track prep dialed in there. They know exactly what they're doing. So, yeah, that's all we've got here for this recap of Red Dirt Raceway down there in Meeker, Oklahoma. The next video you'll see on the channel is going to be a preview for the race at the Southern Oklahoma Speedway on Friday for the 8th race of the season. And then I'm going to maybe put out a power rankings video as well before then. So we'll see you guys in the next couple videos. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. It is free. Hit the like button. Comment down below. Did you like the action at Red Dirt Raceway? It was a really good night of action. So appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you in the next one.